So there you have it. Do good and talk about it. We just heard earlier what the humanities thinks of the fact that we are living in a post-truth society. That is the word of the year 2016 from the Oxford English Dictionary, is post-truth. Of course, the entire scientific community is up in arms about this as well, but I think they have a point. We need to stop telling the truth so much, especially to impressionable young minds. You can see some of them here. We've got impressionable young minds that we had at the European Researchers' Night, and we were implanting the dangerous idea in their heads that research is fun. So my role in this project is I'm taking the data that all the other researchers are generating, and I get the fun bit. I get to interpret those data. I get to make visualizations. I get to make reconstructions. And then I get to disseminate those data. And those areas are more interlinked than you'd think, because without interpretation, data is not information. You can see that here. I have a lot of clocks for you. And if you're trying to work out the time, it does not help me in the least that I tell you this is the truth. These are all correct. Still doesn't tell you what time it is. So for that, you need metadata. You need data about the data. You need the context to interpret it. So I can show you here. One of those is the clock for Brussels. But we also have, for example, Japanese time. We have a clock where the clock works, but the hands are broken. And this one at the end isn't a clock at all. That's a barometer. And so if you don't have that metadata, that data about the data, you don't know what's going on. You haven't interpreted it. It's just data. It's not information. Now, in cultural heritage, that brings us to this problem. Everyone is used to seeing these big, white, shining classical temples because we, as researchers, don't tell you the truth about them. And that's because we know they were brightly painted. We know they weren't white stone. We know they were really, really garish. But no two researchers can agree on exactly what they looked like. And so, because we don't know exactly what they looked like, we leave them blank. That means we have absolute certainty that we are wrong, but at least we have certainty. So what can we do to rectify that? Well, I have a clock here. If I'm trying to work out what time it is, I can show you this clock, and I can say, look, I know it's after lunch and it's before sunset. We must be somewhere in this window. We didn't exactly come back from lunch early, and we're not all running that late, so we're somewhere in here. Nobody's pulled me off the stage yet, so we must still be in our allotted time slot. And so while I don't know what the exact time, I can tell you to within about 30 minutes what the time is. And that's a lot better than having a blank clock. So when we go into cultural heritage, that means we have this lovely little church we're working on. It is the Church of Asino in the Troodos Mountains in Cyprus. And we know for a fact that this church was not blank outside. We know that it was brightly painted with frescoes. You can see the frescoes here. If you can't see them, that just reinforces what I'm saying. Without me to interpret what you're seeing, you don't have the information. So right here above the door, we have little frescoes. And so I've tried a reconstruction of those frescoes based on what we know, based on the remaining fragments, based on comparable churches in the area, based on a chemical analysis of the stone surface for the pigments. And do I know this is the truth? No, I do not. But I know it is more true than leaving it blank. So I can't go out and tell you this is the truth, but I can tell you this is my guess. And to turn that guess into a scientific theory, I need to document my thought processes. I need to document what data went into it to make those decisions. And I need to know what we don't know, what the areas of uncertainty are, so that future researchers can work on that. And so the most important thing when you're reconstructing a church like this is don't paint over the original. And that's why we're not only a heritage project, we are a digital heritage project. And that means that what I'm developing is an app that people can use to explore this church. And the great thing about digital is it can show conflicting ideas at the same time. We can have different theories. In this case, in this image, you see different time frames, different ways the church looked at different times. I can grant accessibility, not only in a physical sense, but I can even say people who have an art history background will want to know totally different information than school children, and I can make different versions for them. But of course, there's also a game-like walkthrough for people who can't physically visit the site. They can explore any little corners if they want and check that I am in fact telling the truth. And then perhaps the most interesting thing we have in this entire app is augmented reality. Augmented reality simply means that I take a target, in this case the floor plan of the church. I hold my phone over it, and when you look through the phone, up pops the church. And that means we can interact with objects that don't exist in the physical world, but we can interact with them in the virtual world. Now, a lot of people have been using augmented reality. I don't know if you've heard of this little thing called Pokemon Go. Getting a lot of people interacting with virtual objects that don't exist. And that's why this is such a valuable tool, because that's what draws people in. This is Researchers' Night in Slovenia, in Ljubljana, in a shopping center. We have all these children coming to see what we're doing. We show them this. We show them our little church. We show the way it magically pops up. And then we say, look, my job is to shoot lasers at castles, and then I fly drones around churches, and then I go home and play Minecraft all day. They're like, ooh. So we had this one little boy who came up to me, looked at what I was doing, then ran away to find his parents and said, look, Mummy, it's true. I told you you can be a nerd when you grow up. And that for me is the ultimate accomplishment, because what I really, really want for the future, I want that boy to grow up to be a nerd. I want him to do well in school. I want him to become a Marie Curie fellow, and then I want him to prove that I'm lying. Do it better. And just in case anyone's interested in the app, we released the beta version, the first version of that app 3 weeks ago at the Euromed conference for Digital Cultural Heritage. So you are the second audience we're ever testing it on. So go ahead and download it if you like, or find me after and I'll make you go, ooh, it's magic. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions in the audience? Yes, we've got one here in the middle.
Hello, it's so happy to see that there is a cultural heritage fellow here. And so I want to ask, I'm also very interested in public outreach of cultural heritage. I'm wondering whether you have some idea on how to do this kind of digital documentation and interpretation in a limited resources area, because some of the heritage sites or some of the countries, they don't have so much funding or even staffs who can do this kind of digital documentation or even interpretation. They don't know anything about it. So, like, is there something that is that requires less funding and less, like, it's more accessible for people to reach these regions?
Well, as I was telling you, play Minecraft. And I mean that quite seriously. A lot of what we do is we recycle existing tools from the gaming industry, because the gaming industry puts a lot of money into research and development, and people are also used to using these applications, so they instinctively know how to use them. So when you're just reconstructing a town, you can work on different scales. You can say, I want every stone to be perfect. You can say, I want to vaguely know what the buildings look like, or you can even say, I just want the arrangement, the structure of the town. And using that, if you just use symbols, if you use different blocks in Minecraft and Unity and some gaming engine and just set them into your landscape, people can arrange them the way they think. So really what we do is a lot of interpretation. There's a joke that goes that the bass player in a band exists to translate for the drummer. And that's sort of what we're doing. We are going from the archaeologists who know what they're thinking but can't put it on paper to the public by giving them the tools they need for that. And the tools they need for that are often things that somebody has developed for something else, but that we can steal and reuse the way we want them.
Oh, yeah, we've got a question down at the front here.
Hello. I'm not sure if as part of the commission team who's behind the organisation of this event, I'm supposed to ask a question or not, but I'll make a point and turn it into a question, or I'll make my point by turning a question to you. First point is just to say that we spend 8 million euros every 2 years on the night event, on the Researchers' Night event. And my question to you is, do you agree with me that this is possibly the best money, small amount of money spent by the European Commission, because we get a huge value from it? It reaches out to more than 1 million young people every year through things like what you described as your event in the shopping centre in Slovenia. So, do you agree with me? There's money really well spent?
Oh, I would definitely say that, because we are an emerging discipline in digital cultural heritage, for example, and we need people to know this field exists so they can study it, so they can work in it. When I started university, there was no such thing as digital cultural heritage, so I didn't know that's where my calling was. I went and did something else. I did architecture. But then I kind of slid into it sideways, and I'm glad I ended up here. But if we can grab those people before they ever go off to university, before they lose the enthusiasm even as children, as students, and just say, look, this field exists, we need you, we need your ideas, and come join us, it's fun, then I think we can definitely work on making that field go into a direction we want it to be in.
Okay. Thank you very much.